All right, joining us now, she's the head coach. She's been the head coach at UCF since 2008. Speak of Becky Cramer joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret. How you doing, Coach?
Good. No, it's great to be here. How are you doing?
Good. What's it been like this year? It's been such a unique year across obviously everywhere in all sports with obviously the protocols and the pandemic going on and things like that. What's it been like for you and your program in rowing?
I know that every team, every sport's had their challenges. We've had our challenges. The team has done a great job of pushing through and kind of persevering despite. But last year I believe it was I think March 12th was the last day that or maybe it was 13th, that we were in boats together. And as we came back in the fall and it was unknown what things were going to look like. We have a large number of international athletes on our team. And so a number of them chose to stay home in their home countries in the fall and train. And so we actually had a very young group on campus because a lot of our leadership was staying home. And with just the nature of social distancing, I mean, it makes it impossible to be in boats. And so we did not get into our bigger boats, basically our conference boats, the 4s and 8s, until the end of January. And so to go that long without actually kind of specifically doing what our sport is definitely has been a bit challenging. We were able to focus on a lot of other aspects of our sport. It was very, very individualized. And so we made a lot of improvements that way. But for example, our coxswains didn't get an opportunity to steer from March until nearly February. And they've been doing a great job since, but it definitely changed our timeline of training a bit.
How much of an adjustment was it for you and your staff? How much adjusting do you have to do and navigate here to kind of get your team ready once you did get together and just start the season?
In terms of, and once we were able to get into the bigger boats, the coxed boats, the 8s and 4s. We, not having a fall season, that's when we work a lot on the technical foundation. And so we started in the middle of February when we should have started gearing up. We had a scrimmage only a few weeks later with Tennessee, and we sort of hit the ground running with the racing season. So we're both trying to establish technical foundations, get everybody matched up together, but then also prepare for racing. And so there were days when we had to cut back on training, and that was a little bit challenging, but then there's days when we just have to kind of overlook some of the technical things because we just need to get them prepared. So that being said, the team is deeper than it's ever been. And so some of the adjustments we've made as coaches is that we're used to being in our lineups and set lineups longer, but so many people have been working hard and figuring things out and learning on the fly that the results in selection have been inconsistent, but that's because everybody's pushing hard and we're deeper and faster through the team than we have in the past. And so our adjustment is we've just had to constantly be checking and seeing where people are. And we've had athletes be in different boats way more often than in years past.
Where do you feel you're at right now as you get sick? Because I know in the past when we've spoken, you've talked about, there's the season, but you want to make sure you're peaking and at your best right now. Here as you get into the conference championship, that's when you've obviously raised the level of and then there's so where do you feel you're at right now?
Honestly, with kind of how this year has unfolded, we are definitely finding more speed than we have. It's obviously there's things that we would have liked to have gone differently as the season has unfolded, but it's all really coming together, and we are in practice are putting down our fastest pieces that we have this year, and even challenging some of the fastest times we've had in years past. And so it was definitely a lot of learning through the regular season, but it set us up and has given us a foundation to really put the pieces together at just the right time, which is, we're pretty excited as coaches right now.
Having the experience from the past, winning the conference championships, does that help you this week considering there was no championships last year?
It's interesting because having had, so many championships under our belt, with having a bit of a younger team, we do have a large group of seniors and a large group of super seniors that came back, but it's still, the percentage of the team is very young. We don't have a ton of athletes who've ever raced at a championship. And even in 2019, our championship was kind of crazy, and it had to be moved up suddenly by 2 days. And it wasn't run sort of in a typical fashion. And so the bulk of our team has not been to sort of a normal championship. And so we've sort of, in our minds, reset ourselves, and not necessarily as defending 5, but going out because it's a new team. We're far enough removed that we're looking at chasing this team's first, if that makes sense.
No, it does, right? Because it kind of takes some of the pressure off. You're just trying to win a championship. You're not thinking about the past for the players. So it probably helps them from a mental standpoint, right?
Exactly. And like when we did a photo shoot earlier, it's not about yes, we're honoring the athletes that have come before us, but it's not their champion. This is our championship, and the rings and the trophies are from past teams, but let's win. Like, this team needs to win a championship. And so it has definitely sort of reawakened that hunger, and sort of resets it. And so having a year with none, as you said, it takes the pressure off, because we're looking to chase our first.
Yeah, and it says motivated to try to win a championship. It's really, it's very smart on that. Let me ask you about a couple of your athletes. Julie Polson, one of the most decorated rowers of all time. It's probably her and Christina Sarf, who was here, part of that first 07 NCAA tournament team, and probably should be considered to be the first rower to be in the UCF Athletic Hall of Fame. What makes Julie so important and great at what she does?
Julie as we recruited her, she was racing at the highest level, and she has been to numerous world championships. But as she came here, she continued to grow as an athlete and a person. And she, essentially, it was before she came, she had predominantly raced the single. And so coming into UCF, racing the big boats, the 8s, was a bit new. And so she had a lot to learn and grow, just from sort of the team environment. But she also had a lot to teach us, and just the speed. And so it's been really exciting and awesome to watch her grow. But she is she's a team player, and she just wants to race and go fast and be competitive, and challenges everyone on the team, and, sees everyone as her peers, which, allows us to go out and hold everybody accountable to that same standard. But she is, as you had said, one of our most decorated, and is excited because as she graduates from here, she's moving on and ultimately going to look to make the Olympics.
I'm not going to put you on the spot and compare her to Christina, but like, just looking up studying, and you've been at the program for a long time. How do you compare the two of them, who have made a big impact? Of course, Christina's now still involved. She's an assistant coach at Oklahoma. As like I said, probably should be the first rower to get inducted into the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame. I think that should happen with the success of the program. She was a big part of that in the beginning. But how do you compare?
Agree, yeah.
You agree? Yeah. How do you compare those two, since you know both of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest, I do. I think they have very, very different backgrounds, in that Christina had been sort of an out of sport initially. She was a swimmer who found rowing, whereas Julie has been rowing since she was 10. But ultimately, kind of at their heart and who they are, of just wanting to push the team and the success of the team. Both of them are very similar in that regard, and just fired up, that excitement, that passion, and just that love of rowing and that love of competing. I really do think this, kind of in terms of how they related to the team and how they challenged themselves, were very, very similar in that way. And over the years, I think that we've had a lot of talented athletes, but those two, I think why they stand out kind of more so than others is because the team around them has been fast, but it's because they have enabled the team around them to be fast. They have challenged others and supported others and been really ultimate team players, which has led to a solid year in 07, our first year at NCAAs. And then through Julie's tenure here, has been very successful.
I want to ask you about Amy Van Ryan, who her cousin was Ashley Van Ryn, was the starting center fielder for UCF on the 2008 Conference USA Championship team, was also part of the A-Sun Championship team in 05. So you got a family tree here of UCF bloodlines here with Amy. Describe Amy and her story and how you ended up getting her.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I love about the sport, and it's kind of actually the opposite end of the spectrum from Julie, is Julie has been, rowing since she was 10. But we recruit out of sport, and we're always looking for talented, competitive athletes. Like, we can teach you to row. That's the easy part. And, that was sort of the way Christina Sarf came into it. But with Amy, we had reached out and we had recruited her. And initially she, didn't know what this rowing thing was. But then she chose and she came here, and she, arguably one of the most competitive people, and she will race anything, anytime, anywhere, anything that moves, and is always looking for that win. And it just has such a great energy. In her freshman year, she was excited to learn, and it was something new, and just wanted to win championships and be the best and be out in front. And she figured out the sport pretty quickly. She's an athletic, as you know, like, just in her family, it's in her blood. And her freshman year was actually, that was the last full season we had. And so her freshman year, she was in the 4, and that is the highest, I believe it's the highest placing we've had a boat ever at NCAAs. And in that boat, we had Amy, who was a freshman. We had another freshman from Italy. And then we had an upperclassman and another out of sport who had been a swimmer. And they just, honestly, they didn't know any better other than to race anything that moved. And why can't we be top 15 in the country? And they went out, and Amy was a real big part of that. And it has continued. Right now, she's 7th seat of our varsity 8. And she just is always amped to race. She's such a competitor at all times.
It's really remarkable because obviously Ashley has gone on and has been part of the U.S. national handball team. So these two just pick up sports as hobbies. I don't know what they do. I know Ashley very well. I've not met Amy yet, but I know Ashley well. One of those people that has those intangibles in the leadership on the softball side. Do you see that in Amy as well, moving forward, that leadership and the intangibles that you have to have on a championship team?
I do. And I think that, in rowing, we have larger teams, and in the 8, we've got the coxswain. There's a lot of different roles. And so I think there's a lot of different kind of roles to fill with that leadership. And what Amy really, really brings is that confidence, and that, like, why not me? Why can't we win? Like, history or whatever, or it's just nothing's impossible. And it's, if you go out and put your head down, and she has shown that can be done. And when you are in a boat with Amy, or you're near Amy, she emanates this confidence, and it kind of infuses you, and you start to be like, yeah, why not? Like, I can do this. And she just has fun going hard. And it's really great to have that as a coach, and really important. And that it's, we've got our hard workers, and we've got our kids who are going to do everything else, but we also need that somebody who's just chomping at the bit to go. And that is absolutely what she brings, and infuses into others as well.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. It brings a lot of memories back there. We're speaking with head coach Becky Cramer here on Black and Go Banneret. Let's talk about, obviously, Oak Ridge. That's where you're going to be for the American Conference Championships. Give me what's it like over there? You've been there before, but just take me through that and the keys to being successful over there.
Yeah, it's and I've been there before. I've been there a lot. Kind of ironically, just the way our schedules have been over the last few years, very, very, very few people on the team have been there. And so this is going to be a new race course for a lot of the staff and a lot of the team. But it is a race course that has always been kind to us. It is one of my favorites, and has typically been one of the team's favorites. And in looking, kind of projecting out at the conditions, we haven't had ideal racing conditions in more than a couple years. And so, again, in 2019, we had to move up racing by 2 days because of conditions. And so it's predicted to be glass. It's, we've got good seeds. We're in a center lane, and it really is just a protected place where we get the opportunity to just race without having to really think and kind of worry about specifics of the race course, if that makes sense. It'll be easy to imagine ourselves at home. It's going to be the right temperature. It's a little bit of a tail current. So again, it's a race course that has treated us well. Even though a lot of kids haven't been there, I think that it's gonna be good.
Do you get a sense of pride in that, this week, a lot of casual fans, a lot of casual UCF fans, maybe don't pay attention, during the early part of the season. They circle now. This is the rowing championships. We will usually win this. And a lot of people circle this, and they're going to circle the NCAA championships. There's got to be some pride in that a lot of people now kind of look forward to this. This is one of their favorite events. They kind of circle. I'll never forget being in Tulsa with softball in 2016 and running into people, and people are watching the rowing championships as you were winning it from afar. I mean, what's it like to have that pride that, a lot of people are going to be tuned in this week and seeing how y'all do?
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's, as sort of the season and the year begins to wind down with a lot of other sports, we really kind of wind up. And it's that opportunity to be on the bigger stage and to get to sort of show off what we do and our hard work. And in our sport, I mean, it's a training sport. It's sort of what you do last is what matters. And so everything we do is to prepare us for this day. And so to have that be a day that is highlighted, that people, that's what they tune in for. Like, this is our chance to show what we can do. And so it's really cool to be able to have that sort of come together and coincide, that as we're peaking, finding our top speed, getting ready to go out and win some races right when everyone is excited and ready to watch us.
I've always been curious. The NCAA championships this year is in Sarasota, right in your backyard here. Basically hosting. Do you bring that up at all to the team? Is that something you don't bring up? Is that something you use as motivation? Being in Sarasota, it's not like that happens every year. Is that something that gets brought up?
Yes and no. I think it depends on the year and it depends on the team. And as we read the team, because sometimes we need that motivation. Not really necessarily need the motivation, but it just reminds us that it's our home state. It's defending our turf. This is our world. This is your friends and family can drive and be there. But sometimes that's even just getting too ahead of ourselves, and we've just got to take care of the stroke that we're on. And so having been at NCAA's in Sarasota a couple of years ago, I think we talked about it a little bit more. This year, we remind them every once in a while that, we're Florida, and when it gets hot, we're excited. Like this, we know this. There's teams that get here and kind of melt. And so we just get excited that we get to perform in this environment in our state. But we really, again, with just the differences in this year and everything, it's been much more about just the execution of what's directly in front of us. And it's a young enough team that, again, we're so far removed from having been at an NCAA championship. So it's tough to talk about what it's like to be there when a lot of our kids have never seen boats go that fast or those teams. And so it doesn't mean as much to them. And so we just focus on creating the speed we've got. So it's kind of a bit of both, if that makes sense.
Is that what drives you as a coach, is getting these new faces and kind of helping them lead them to success? Is that kind of what drives you here and keep maintaining this high level, but at the same time getting these new faces and have them experience what previous athletes and rowers have done before? Is this maintaining that? Is that part of that joy you have in coaching?
That's what I love about coaching is being able to teach the sport and challenge our athletes to do more than they think they can. And in so many different ways, whether it's on the water or in the classroom. We've got someone like Julie who had never swept before she came here. She'd only rowed with 2 oars. And since she was here, she, now rows with 1 oar. And then even after her first year, went back to her home country and had some of the highest finishes that Denmark had at the World Championships, and to push her beyond what she had thought. But then someone like Amy or, the new out of sport kids, they come in and they know nothing about the sport, but we get a whole year to work on and build and learn and challenge. And they had no idea even what an oar was. And 9-10 months later are, racing for a national title. And so just the idea of stretching what they believe is possible, both in general, but also about themselves. And I love that as a coach.
Last question. What's going to be the keys to being successful this week up in Tennessee there and accomplish your goals?
I think the keys to being successful, it's SMU has had a very successful spring. They're currently ranked number 11 in the country. And so it's really going out. And as I've said, we've been picking up speed since our last race over the last 3 weeks. And normally when you've got this much of a quiet period, you can kind of go flat, but it's been the opposite for us. And so it's really focusing on us and what we're doing and the speed that we can create, and not allowing other crews to kind of intimidate us or get into our heads, or like we know what we're putting down. We need to be confident in that and just execute what we've been doing and just take it one stroke at a time. And if we do that, and which I know we can, we'll have a successful weekend.
I'm glad you mentioned SMU, and people may not realize how strong this league is. You mentioned it. 19 was very close. I mean, that was just you were pushed there, and then obviously it's going to be nationally televised. It'll be on ESPN Plus, which also you got to be excited about with the exposure you're going to be getting.
No, very, very excited about that. But yeah, since we've the American, and since we've joined, it's been getting faster and faster each year, and it's exciting because we are getting faster and faster each year. But it has gotten to a level where, number 11 team in the country is trying to knock us off our pedestal. But we're looking to defend. And if we just do what we need to do, I think we'll be in a good position. But it's definitely going to be some fast quality racing.
Well, Coach, we wish you good luck over there this week. And obviously appreciate you taking time from a busy schedule for joining us. Good luck, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.